Okay, so hard drives. What is a hard drive? A hard drive is where your computer's software lives, the long-term, like, stuff you got installed, your pictures, your videos, your data. The data on your computer lives on your hard drive. When you turn off your computer, that data on your hard drive, it stays there. RAM, when you turn off your computer, gone. It's very volatile. So hard drive is where you keep all of your stuff. What matters about a hard drive? Well, primarily type and size. So type actually dictates speed. So first one is type. Let's talk about the types of hard drive. All right, there are three types of hard drive. There's platter, which looks like a big old brick, usually silver, with a little indentation here, and like plugs on the side. And what the platter is like it says, it's actually inside of that thing. There's a spinning platter with a reading head that like reads and writes data to a spinning platter, right? These big boys are big. Typically, you can get like 10 terabyte platters, right? And they're cheap. These are cheap, but they're slow. So pluses of this is cheap. Minus is slowest. All right, so platter, that's our platter. All right, second one is SSD, which is kind of like a platter, but it's like smaller. It's a little bit bigger than a business card. It has the same kind of plugs on the side, but it doesn't actually have it doesn't have a rotating platter disk in it. It has solid state memory, hence the SSD, solid state drive. So it's got like circuits and stuff where bits get flipped that way. The benefit of the SSD is that it's pretty fast. And it's reasonably cheap. But the con, I guess, if there is a con, these are both pluses, right? This is going to be a minus, is that they're kind of unpopular. We'll get to that in a minute, and why they're unpopular. The reason why they're unpopular is because of the third type, which is a M.2. Now, the M.2 is a little card, little thing. It's a little bit wider than a business card, but skinnier than a business card. And it'll have a little notch here. And it'll have like not connectors, you don't plug anything into it. You plug this thing directly into your motherboard. And the M.2's pluses is that it's blazing fast, super fast. Plus is that it's super fast. Minus is that it's most expensive. All right, and then another plus for me is that it's simple. Right? You plug this thing into your motherboard, no worrying about connectors or wires or anything, and you are good to go, buddy. You got a M.2 SSD. M.2 is technically a type of SSD. It's a format of SSD. M.2 is solid state memory as well because it's got no spinning platter. And that is that. So there's your type. And then the other thing is your size. All right, so let's go over here to size. And there are two ways you will see sizes mentioned. They're going to be gigabytes or terabytes. That's supposed to be a GB, or, okay. Typically, a terabyte is 1,000 times larger than gigabyte. So typically, you will see things as spec'd as like 1 to 2 terabytes, or 256 gigabytes, or 512 gigabytes. Computer stuff works by powers of 2. So, 2, 4, 6, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1 again, basically. So gigabytes are usually going to be like, if you see like an SSD or something, it'll usually be like 250 or 240 gigabytes, or 512 gigabytes, or 1 to 2 terabytes. And sometimes for platters, you'll see them up to like friggin' 5 and 10 terabytes, like lots and lots of data. So let's go through a couple listings that you might see and what that means. So let's say we see a listing for Crucial. Let's say 256 GB SSD. I think that's pretty much all you're going to see on a listing. Crucial is the name of the manufacturer in this case. They also make RAM. They make RAM and they make solid state stuff. But in this case, what they're talking about is you have 256 gigabytes of SSD type memory, right? So it's one of these guys that's pretty fast, reasonably cheap, but kind of unpopular, but you got 250 gigabytes of it. So let's say, let's spec out a different one. Let's say Western Digital. Let's say 1 TB HDD. All right. Western Digital again is a manufacturer, and they're talking about 1 whole terabyte of big freaking platter. All right. So that's kind of what those listings look like, and that's what it means. So that's pretty much all there is to hard drives. The last thing you need to know about hard drives is whether or not they're bootable. Okay, remember how we talked about the BIOS with the motherboard video and how the BIOS is going through what devices are connected to me and can I boot from them? Can I actually expect an operating system out of this sucker? Right, so when you have a hard drive or one of these things, you can install anything that has non-volatile memory, including USB sticks, meaning that non-volatile means when you unplug it, does the memory stay there? When you give it power, is it still there? Unplug it and replug it. Is there still stuff there? And if there is, that is non-volatile memory. But if it's volatile memory, you take the power away, you give it back, and hey, that memory, it's gone. That's RAM stuff. RAM is volatile, and hard drive is not volatile. But going back to the original point, any non-volatile memory storage can have boot files put onto it. Now, BIOSes know how to look for these boot files, and when they find one in the boot menu, remember how we went down the list, and like BIOSes have a list of where to look for bootable stuff. When they find something with boot files on it, they're like, aha, that is an operating system, or at least it's bootable, and I'm gonna load that as if it were a main operating system. So that's what I mean. Hard drives, solid state drives, and M.2s are typically where your operating system lives, particularly these guys. Your solid state drives, they are fast. You usually put your operating system on something fast because that operating system is a big chunky file. It's got a lot of overhead. You want to load really quick into RAM. You want it to have good performance. You want it to feel snappy. So you typically put your operating system, like Windows, you install it on one of these guys. And then if your build is, if you're gonna be handling like a lot of files, you're gonna have gigabytes of files, like if you do video editing, you're typically gonna have a platter also plugged into it. Now the platter doesn't need to have any kind of boot, you don't need to have like Windows on your SSD and then Windows again on your platter in order for them to talk. This guy right here can just be initialized, or your SSD with your operating system on can know how to talk to your platter and get video files off of it or get big files off of it. So that is one way, that's one thing about them, is whether they're bootable or not. And typically you put your operating system on something fast, you might use your platter as a big file storage platter or something like that. That's kind of common to see in setups. All right, next time I believe we're going to be talking about, graphics cards. So I will see you next time for graphics cards.